The article I reviewed this month looked at the interplay between stroke rate and intensity and how that impacts the technique of rowers on an ergometer. 12 elite and sub-elite rowers were asked to complete 3 different stroke rates on an ergometer, and they had their things like stroke length, drive time and work per stroke measured. Now interestingly, what the researchers found was that when rowers had lower stroke rates, they compensated by having higher force and power characteristics. That makes sense, as there are fewer strokes to take at lower stroke rates, and therefore they're trying to optimize that split time by having higher force and power characteristics. Secondly, aligned to that, and what we often know already, is that the greatest change in stroke rate was during the recovery phase, not the dry phase. The dry phase was fairly consistent through all 3 different stroke rates, so it's mostly through the recovery phase where those changes occur. And then finally, when rowers were allowed to row at their preferred stroke rate, what the researchers found was that they had much greater technique and had improved force and power characteristics. And that becomes a really interesting point to consider, particularly when we try and translate this information into practical terms in the rowing boat, where you may have multiple rowers in a boat and they all have different preferred stroke rates to work at. How do you operate a crew where they have these different preferences? So it asks more questions than it provides answers, but a really great insight into this area.